Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is Episode 8, Student Success. Throughout the second series, we've discussed many different business topics, such as how to network and market your studio to recruit new students, how to organize your flute studio, and finally, how to file tax information for your business. I'm super excited to wrap up Series 2 because now we get to talk about the student and their success. Being teachers, that's what it's all about, so this is going to be super fun to talk about. One component to aid in the student's success we've talked about in a previous episode, and that was in regards to organizing the studio space. We've talked about creating an atmosphere that's very inviting and welcoming for the student to feel safe in learning, growing, creating within their medium, music, and using their tool and their body to express themselves musically through the flute. I would encourage you, if you have not already listened to episode 6, just to go back a few episodes and check that out because I think there's a lot of great tips and suggestions to organizing your studio space. Of course, having a well-decorated studio space is not the only component to a student's success. It's nice, but as teachers, we have to go one or two or many steps forward past that. One of the main components of driving students and helping students towards success is showing them support and encouragement on a weekly basis. By showing your students constant support, they will ultimately feel encouraged and motivated to work harder and to shoot for their short-term and long-term goals. So how do we do this as teachers? One way is to choose positive words. Choose a vocabulary that advocates encouragement and support. Not only your choice of words are important, but your body language. If you say one thing, but they are reading facial movements or facial expressions that say otherwise, then your words may not be believable. Even if the student for some reason has done something that you don't necessarily agree with and you want to correct them so they can be a better person, you can still talk to them and you can choose to find a way to say something in a kind way in order for them to listen and be receptive, and hopefully these tips and advice that you give them will resonate and hopefully they will grow. Going back to the element of support and encouragement, using supportive and encouraging words are great. In addition to that, listening to them. If the student feels like you, the teacher, are acknowledging them when they speak, then they will feel valued as a person and they will feel like their ideas hold some weight within the studio. So what does this all have to do with student success? Well, when a teacher offers that ongoing support and encouragement, he or she conveys faith in a student's ability, which in turn increases the student's confidence and willingness to learn. This is mentioned in Pedota's article, How Can Student Success Support Teacher Self-Efficacy and Retention? So going back to the element of supporting, showing support and encouragement to the student, this will ultimately have the student motivated to work harder and to shoot for and aim for their goals. I couldn't agree more. Countless of times as being a student within my own career, there were times where I thought I could never ever accomplish task X. The second I knew that my teacher believed in me, it quickly changed my perspective, and because they had faith in my abilities, I had faith in myself too. So this is extremely important. In addition to this, Pedota makes a really good point. He states that once they know that they have your support, the students will be more motivated to work harder and have higher expectations and achieve at higher levels. What more could we as teachers want? I mean, that's just amazing. He goes on to say that if a student feels encouraged, this dynamic has a great influence because a studio based on this can enhance a student's sense of belonging and connection within the studio, which will ultimately increase academic self-image and success. And ultimately, that's what we as teachers want, right? We want to, of course, recruit the students and bring them into our studio, but if they're not feeling acknowledged and encouraged and supported, they will feel unsuccessful in their endeavors and they will walk out the door, unfortunately. And so we want to have a high retention rate. When I say have a high retention rate, I'm not saying that in a sense of like, so it looks good, on our end as a studio teacher, but because we want to keep them in our studio to make an impact, whether it's today or tomorrow. We want to be that influential teacher that has made an impact in their lives. The next piece of advice that I can lead you to help with your students' success is to listen to what their goals are for the year. Of course, each student is different and each student has different reasons why they're playing the flute. Now, there are some standards laid out by their specific band program and band directors that most students have to adhere to. So, for example, solo and ensemble competition. If they are, say, in the top band in their middle school band program, most band directors that I have worked with in the past will make it a mandatory requirement for the students to participate in said competition. So besides that, listen to what they want to accomplish. And by listening, they feel that they have a voice. They have a say in their education. Once the two of you have determined what it is that you are seeking, help them towards that goal, no matter how big or small it may seem. So even if it's a 6th grader beginner saying that they want to learn the theme to Mario Brothers, if they can play that theme tune by the end of, the semester or by the end of the month, whatever their time period is, they will feel super successful. In the last tip, I mentioned that each student is different, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Each student has their own unique background, environment in which they live in, family experiences, friends, life experience, and so on and so on. So because of this, you want to approach them as the unique individual that they are. And being the great teacher that you are, you can develop teaching strategies and techniques that works well for the individual. I often feel like as a teacher that I am a musical detective, not only in the sense that I am searching how to help them articulate better or have a clearer flute tone, but also a detective in the sense of how do I explain X concept to them, so that way this individual can comprehend it to the best of their ability. I like what Pedota has to say in regards to this subject. He says addressing students' differences and their interests can enhance their motivation to learn while increasing their intrinsic desire for academic success. How cool is that? So it might be overwhelming or daunting to have 50 different personalities in your studio, but play to that. Use that to your advantage. How creative can you be as a teacher to help each individual accomplish their goals? I would just like to conclude this tip by saying that if students are motivated to learn because their needs are met within the flute studio, then their chances of success are quite high. Next, I would like to point your attention to the fact that if you've noticed, I haven't really focused on success as it has to be X, Y, and Z. I think if we as teachers associate the word success with winning an audition or making a certain band or chair, then, these are all great accomplishments. But if we always correlate success as winning or success as, getting the job or whatever the case may be, these students' self-image might be damaged. Because we as professionals know all too well that it's easy to get on this roller coaster of emotions if we let it. So one day, someone can feel on cloud 9 because he or she won an orchestral audition. But the next day, they could feel really down and out because they were not accepted into a music program, for example. Whatever the case may be, it is crucial to help build students' self-image and self-esteem up, no matter if they play well or poorly today or tomorrow. If you focus on this, then the students will know and they will realize that their self-worth as a person has no connection to what they do as a musician. And I'm sure we can all relate to this. So, for example, one day my flute tone might be amazing, but the next day it could sound like I've never played the flute before, and you're just like pulling your hair and trying to figure out why that is. But knowing that whether I have a good flute tone day or not does not impact who I am as a person, who I am as an individual. So helping your students realize this, they can find success in anything that they do. So I could have an awful audition tomorrow, and it's not quote-unquote successful because I didn't win that chair in said wind band or orchestra. But if I can find what was successful about that audition, whether or not I made that band, I will feel accomplished. So instead of saying, well, I didn't win that orchestra position, instead, train your students to find the good in that audition. So, for example, if there was a very hard double tonguing passage at rehearsal L, say I nailed it on audition day. Well, there's success in that. And you as the performer should feel accomplished because you played a very hard lick. So no matter the circumstances, you as the teacher can always help students find the little or the big victories within their endeavors. So talking about little or big victories, you as the flute studio teacher can decide if you're comfortable with this, making a page on your website for students' successes, whether they're small or large or anything in between. David Cutler talks about this in his book, Savvy Music Teacher. He claims that if students see their successes posted on a public website, then they feel very proud and accomplished because they can see and they can show off their hard work to their friends and family. So that's one little tip that you can incorporate within your studio if you so choose. If you would like additional resources about this topic of student success, there are a couple books that you can check out. These books are the following: David Cutler's book, Savvy Music Teacher, Barry Green's book, The Inner Game of Music, Kenny Werner's book, Effortless Mastery, and William Westney's book, The Perfect Wrong Note. In addition to today's suggestions, be creative and discover new strategies that will help promote student success within your flute studio. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at heidikbegay@gmail.com or visit my website at heidikbegay.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please go into the iTunes store and rate and review. Thank you.
Let's talk about flute.